Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Karla Krmpotić. I'm an associate at Hrdalo and Krnic law firm, and today we're going to talk about the new landmark regulation on markets in crypto assets. So this will be a quick chat with a lot of information in it, so bear with me. It's the point to have you a quick overview on what should you expect when MICA comes into force. So a quick introduction, a regulation on markets in crypto assets, it's a regulation, so it has a direct implementation in the entire single market of the European Union. An overview, firstly, it digs into definitions and scope of the application. Then we have the regulation on the issuers or ones who intend to do a public offering or admission to trading of different categories of crypto assets. So crypto assets other than asset reference tokens, e-money tokens, then about ART tokens, EMT tokens, and about them. Then we have crypto asset service providers that engage with crypto through providing services. Then we have provisions on market abuse, and finally on the competent authorities. Okay, so who does it applies to? Natural and legal persons and certain other undertakings. First, what is other undertaking? Is it a DAO? Is it not a DAO? We have only a definition that other undertaking is undertaking that provides a sufficient amount of protection, same one as a legal entity. So it is very broad, we still don't know what that means. But we have on one side issuers, and on the other side, crypto asset service providers. So issuers that offers to public crypto assets and that are intended to admit them to trading. So you see here, it is aimed to regulate, firstly, the centralized entities and that are identifiable. We will talk in a few minutes about the decentralized ones. So it does not apply to parent companies, liquidators in the insolvency procedures, European Central Bank, national central banks, European Investment Bank, public international organizations, the European Stability Mechanism, and that's it. So, the definition. Crypto assets are divided into three categories. First one is very broad, and it is intentionally very broad to have into scope everything else other than the stablecoins. So, we have stablecoins, asset reference tokens, and e-money tokens. So crypto assets, like a legal definition, means a digital representation of a value or of a right that is able to be transferred and stored electronically using DLT technology. Then we have asset reference tokens that purpose to maintain a stable value by referencing another value or right or combination, including one or more official currencies. So basically, stablecoins. Then we have a definition of a CAS, but that is mainly for the persons that are providing services. We will dig into that in a few minutes. Okay, so we said which subjects are in the scope of MICA and what are the categories, but what falls out of scope of MICA? That was the big question. So we have here, firstly, I want to start with the financial instruments. If the crypto asset is in fact a financial instrument, then the regulation on financial instruments applies. So is the MiFID II directive, Markets in Financial Instruments directive. But how can we know when a crypto asset is a financial instrument or not? So ESMA, the competent authority, European Securities and Markets Authorities, has to issue guidelines soon in the next year or year and a half to issue guidelines on the conditions and criteria for qualification of crypto asset as a financial instrument. So we still do not know how they are, what are the conditions and the criteria for that. So then we have the NFTs. NFTs per se, like NFTs, are not excluded like that, but they are excluded if they are not fungible and if they are unique. If they are issued in a large series or collection, that means they are fungible. So the competent authority should apply principle substance over form. So no matter if you call it an NFT, if it is not unique or if it is not fungible, MICA will apply. Also, fractionalized NFTs are not out of scope of MICA, so if they are divided into sections. Then we have the metaverse, and then we have the big question I mentioned on the beginning, centralized, decentralized. So centralized entities are in the scope, but decentralized are out of scope only where provided in a fully decentralized manner, without any intermediary. What that means, we don't know yet. ESMA should, and competent authorities also should give instructions on what that means, to what scope, what it means be fully decentralized. Okay, then we have borrowing and lending, providing hardware or software non-custodial wallets, but MICA does not apply, but the transfer of funds regulation applies. It is approved at the same time as MICA. Then we have deposit, structured deposit, non-life or life insurances, pension products, social security schemes, funds that are not e-money tokens, and then we have loyalty tokens. But if they are non-transferable nor redeemable with someone else other than the issuer, if they are transferable or redeemable with someone else other than the issuer, MICA applies. Then we have tokens that have no identifiable issuer. That means basically Bitcoin. But CASPs that deals with that kind of assets have to be compliant with MICA. For the few next categories, they are out of scope, but if they are intended to be admitted to trading, MICA still applies. So we have crypto assets that are created as a reward for maintenance of a DLT, like for validation and mining. Then we have tokens offered for free. Then we have utility tokens. But when they are providing goods or services that exist and are in operation. If they do not exist, the goods and services, and are not in operation, MICA still applies. Then we have tokens offered to the limited network of merchants, and the last three categories do not fall out of scope of MICA, but they have minor requirements to deal with. There's no need for white paper, they have to be only incorporated, marketing communications, and act fairly professionally, and etc. So it's a small tokens that are offered to fewer than 150 persons per member state, and that are offered to qualified investors. I will go through this very fast. So we said what are the categories. So now we have to say what are their obligations, but this is really just scratching the surface. So we have, all of them has to be incorporated. Asset reference tokens can be legal persons, again, and other undertakings, or credit institutions, and e-money tokens can be issued only by the e-money or credit institutions, and then the regulations related to the e-money institutions also and credit institutions apply. So then we have the white paper, crypto assets, so all of the other except from the stablecoin, has to have a white paper that is only notified. Then for the asset reference tokens issuers, they have to be authorized, and by that, their white paper has to be also authorized. For the e-money tokens, the white paper only needs to be notified because they are already regulated institutions. Then we have, all of them has certain marketing requirements, all of them has to act fairly, professionally, but they have to prevent a conflict of interest, have systems and securities, access protocols, and etc. So I would like to dig into asset reference and e-money tokens. They have to have capital reserve and custody of reserve assets requirements. They have to have right of redemption, conflict of interest requests, and also what is interesting is they are prohibited of granting interest, so for the stable coins. Then we have complaints handling procedures, and of course, in the end, the liability provisions. The issuers are liable for the information provided in the white paper, but not if the loss is incurred based on, if the client incurred loss based on the summary of the white paper. If he trusted the summary of the white paper, then the insurer should not be liable. That's why the summary of the white paper is very important for the exclusion of the liability. And also the burden of proof is on the holder of that token. Then we have subcategories for asset reference tokens and e-money tokens, which are significant asset reference tokens and significant e-money tokens that have higher requirements and additional criteria applies. Okay, now we settled with the issuers. And now we will dig into crypto asset service providers. So these are the categories. It starts with custody and administration, then operating a trading platform, exchange of crypto to crypto or crypto to fiat, and vice versa. Execution of orders on behalf of clients, then reception and transmission of orders on behalf of clients, placing of crypto assets, advice and portfolio management, and providing transfer services on behalf of clients. Then we have a subcategory of crypto asset service providers that are significant crypto asset service provider. The significant are the ones that have over 1 year more than at least 15 million active users. So these are the categories. And what are the minimum CASP requirements? So if you can see at the beginning, so the ones that are only a legal person or other undertaking, again, they have to be authorized by the competent authority, by the home member state. Or who else? Credit institutions, central securities depository, investment firm, market operators, e-money institutions, UCITS management company, alternative investment fund manager. It only has to notify that they are going to provide services because they are already regulated under other set of regulations. So minimum requirements with respect to moral obligations. What is it? Act fairly, honestly, professionally. Then we have prudential requirements that depends on the type of service that a service provider is giving. It goes from 50,000 euros to 150,000 euros of minimum capital requirements. It is interesting, they have to be in form of comparable guarantee or in a form of specific insurance policy. Then we have some governance arrangements for the management bodies. They have to be of good repute. They can't be convicted of terrorist financing, of money laundering, and etc., etc. Then we have safekeeping of assets. That means ownership rights of clients, separating the clients and the CASP holdings, and right to ask for money if something goes wrong. Then we have, of course, complaints handling procedures. The client have to have a way of handling a complaint. And we have a prevention of conflict of interest requirements, outsourcing the services to the third parties. Then we have wind down plans, what happens if the CASP is liquidated, information disclosure to the competent authorities, and of course the contractual engagements with clients. So each of the CASPs I mentioned has additional requirements based on the type of service they give. So for the custody and administration, they have to have custody policy, liability of custodians for the loss as a result of an incident, trading platforms has to have market abuse detection systems, operating rules, prevention of admission to trading of crypto assets that have inbuilt anonymization function. That's interesting. Exchange, best execution policies. Then we have, what I want to say, advice and portfolio management has to have, for advisors, they have to have suitability and knowledge test passed for advisors, and also the client have to pass the suitability assessment test. So to be sure that the client knows what he gets himself into. And also for the transfer services for crypto asset specific agreement provisions. Okay, finally, now we covered issuers, now we covered in general CASPs. The final 2 chapters of MICA are related to the market abuse and the competent authorities. So the provisions on the market abuse are related to the insider information and its public disclosure, to the insider dealing, to the prevention and detection of market abuse, prohibition of unlawful disclosure of inside information, and etc. I already mentioned ESMA, that is a European Securities and Markets Authorities, as the competent authority, together with the European banking authorities and also competent authorities of the member states. They all have to work in cooperation. They all have some kind of supervisory and investigative powers. Also, ESMA, what is important for the so-called transparency, ESMA shall establish registers for white papers of the issuers, for the asset reference tokens issuers, for the e-money tokens issuers, for crypto asset service providers that are authorized and or they notify the competent authorities, and also for the non-compliant CASPs, like some kind of a blacklist of non-compliant CASPs. Okay, when, where, what, why? So last week on the 16th of May, it was adopted by the Council of the EU. That means the member states all voted yes for the MICA. What are the next steps? We are shortly expecting its publication in the official journal of the European Union, and 20 days after that it enters into force. And then when it enters into force, it comes into application in the time of 12 months or 18 months. It depends on the subject. So if it's for the asset reference tokens and e-money tokens, it is 12 months, and it is 18 months later for other crypto assets and CASPs. So we expect it to be in application by the end of 2024. Okay, so everything we talked about and we went through, it has some basic requirements, but we still do not have the specifics. We do not have the forms, we don't have the technical standards, we don't have the guidelines of all of the provisions. So competent authorities has to issue guidelines on that, just like we talked about the white paper. How it will be consisted of, in the form of what? We have, for an example, what is decentralized entity, NFTs, financial instruments, all of those things we talked about, they have to issue guidelines. So the final vote on the quality of MICA is still not sure. It is still yet to be assessed based on those guidelines. So it will be a lot of bylaws and a lot of things added to the already 600-pager document. So I hope I didn't bore you. Our time is unfortunately off, and we do not have time for questions, but I will be here. If you want to ask me or you have something on your mind, just come and talk to me. My name was Karla, and it was nice, still is. It was nice talking to you. Thank you very much.